let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did City do this week?
It's time for Mattress Running the Numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the Air starts now. Today's main event, Million Mile Madness's home stretch. It's all over but the voting. Scandinavian Airlines, or SAS, as I'll call them from now on, is offering 1 million miles to anyone who first registers for this promotion and then flies 15 qualifying SkyTeam airlines. Now, we have to not just fly them, but earn SAS miles on those flights. So they have to be paid flights and earn SAS miles for those flights. You could alternatively use SAS miles to book the flights, but none of us have SAS miles, so that's not in the running for us. Anyway, that's the SAS promotion, and the Frequent Miler team turned that into a team challenge that we call Million Mile Madness. In this challenge, Nick, Steven, and I have been competing to complete the SAS EuroBonus Millionaire promotion with the most SAS, the most speed, affordability, and style. Tim and Carrie are the judges. They're awarding points for each of those criteria, speed, affordability, and style. And they're also awarding us bonus points for a number of different things. Listeners, viewers, readers are going to have the ability to weigh in by voting for who had the best trip overall for completing the SAS promotion. And that's going to amount to about 1/4 of our total score. So it will be most likely the deciding vote, if you will, on who wins this challenge on our team. And I was looking back at what we've done so far. And interestingly, all three of us, Nick, Steven, and I, focused on 2 of the 3 criteria to maximize our trips. So, for example, Nick focused on affordability and style, but he forgot all about speed. He's still in the air as I record this. Steven focused on speed and affordability, and I focused on speed and style. So, it's just really fascinating how we all took different approaches to these 3 things. Anyway, during the challenge, the team met live on YouTube a couple times. There we recapped what we were up to date, and the judges awarded us interim scores. There was lots of entertaining banter there. We will now, for this podcast, play the recordings from those live streams. At the end, I'm going to give you a quick update to what has gone on since then. Specifically, what has Nick been up to since then? And in case you don't make it through the whole show, please stop by our blog, frequentmiler.com, to cast your vote as to who you think deserves to win this challenge. You'll see the opportunity to vote there. There will be a post that has summaries of our trips and a little paragraph from each of us saying why we deserve to win. And now, without further ado, the no longer live stream recordings.
First things first, welcome to the second live check-in during the Million Mile Madness. Greg, Nick, and Steven are all going mad, trying to fly 15 different SkyTeam carriers in
Succeeded.
a short...
Not in the 15, but in going mad.
Yes, succeeded at going mad. Trying to do it all in a 2-week span. We are about almost halfway through that 2-week span. They're at various stages of that journey. So in this check-in, we're going to find out what stage they're at.
Yeah, so let's start with doing recaps with the 2 of you that are here. We'll start with Greg and then go on to Steven. Just as a reminder, let us know where you are. But so Greg, last we saw both of you, you were in the Hilton Charles de Gaulle Airport on different floors. So what's happened since then?
Wow. Okay. So much has happened since then. But my brain is so fried. Forgive me if I forget like half of it. So I was in Paris, and I jumped on a Etihad First Apartments flight to Abu Dhabi and had an incredible flight. For anyone watching or listening that isn't familiar with Etihad First Apartments, it's one of the highest luxury things you can do in the sky with points. I booked with American Airline miles for 62,500 miles. So it's international first class, but plus because you're not just getting a seat or a little like pod area. You're getting what's essentially a room. You've got a long bench along one side and a big captain's chair, and the service and food and everything on board is just phenomenal. So I just loved it. That was like the highlight. I was looking forward to that for weeks for a week, I don't know. Since I booked it, I don't know how long ago that was now. Anyway, that was
Can I ask you a
great.
quick question about your flight, your apartment flight? I heard
Yeah.
that you had 8 glasses of wine and a shot of whiskey in the course of a, what, 4 or 5 hour flight? Is that correct?
It's closer to a 7 hour flight. I did not finish every glass of wine.
Oh,
I was doing tastings, and so I only finished the few that I really liked a lot.
The Riesling and
But
the
I very much enjoyed that experience too,
uh,
and chatting with the flight attendant about the wines. She's really into Austrian wines, and so we talked about that for a while.
nice.
And I had a great nap on that. Man, they turn it into a real bed with sheets and everything, and it's just so comfortable. Anyway, moving on. So that same booking for the same 62,500 miles took me onward. Oh, well, yeah, it took me onward from Abu Dhabi to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. But first, I stopped at the first class lounge in Abu Dhabi. They have a brand new business and first class lounge because there's a new terminal there in Abu Dhabi. So that was very nice, but not as nice as traveling on Etihad first apartment. So, but let's see. So then I took a business class flight on Etihad to Jeddah, and then I had an hour connection to my Saudi flight to Riyadh, and I got in the immigration line because it was a domestic flight, so I couldn't just stay like airside. I had to get in the immigration line. I had a visa ready to go, and the time was counting down. It was taking a really long time to get through. Finally, I started asking people politely, could I possibly step in front of you? I started doing that when I got a text from the airline saying they're going to close the boarding doors 20 minutes before
That's so
departure.
stressful.
It was getting really close to that. So I started asking, and most people were really nice about that. And I got through, and I figured gate A2 would be like really close to the, once you're past security. But no, it's only A1 was further away from security than A2. So I literally ran the half mile or so with my rollerboard next to me. And
and there's no
I made
humidity
it.
there, right? This time of year? Like it's not
What was
humid at
that?
all. It's not humid at all this time of year, so you probably didn't sweat much when you were.
Well, it's not that humid in the airport, but I still sweat a lot. I was sweating buckets. It was terrible. Uh, um, and oh yeah, and of course that ruined the nice shower I had in the sky on the Etihad first apartment. Anyway, on the so then I got onto the Saudi flight, and for some reason I was put in what looked like premium economy rather than regular economy. I almost walked right past my seat, and then I was like, did a double take, said, "Oh, the number's back there. Oh, look who's
who
joined us."
came. Look who
This is what
joined.
happened last time too. Halfway through Greg's story, Nick showed up.
You're starting to make a habit of this, Nick.
It's guys. I'm trying. I'm hustling right now. So I'm trying to get to a taxi, get to the airport in time. So, whew, you guys do
All
some
right,
talking.
good. I'm going to keep telling the story. So I arrive in Riyadh and go to the lounge, and guess who was there? Our one and only Nicholas Reyes was sitting in that lounge, and it turned out that we were on the exact same flight on Qatar to Doha, from there. And we had both booked the Sweet Spot Award, American Airlines, 40,000 points for business class from Middle East to Asia. So we both had this short hop to Doha, and then we went onward to Asia. I went one way, he went another. So that was really fun. I flew onward on Qatar to Jakarta, and had a really nice overnight stay in Jakarta. And then let's see, I flew Garuda in the morning to Bangkok. And guess who was in Bangkok? There was Nick again.
Nick is everywhere except the live stream. Just kidding. He's in the live stream now. He's here.
It's been not so much. Nick and I have overlapped. It's been really fun. But anyway, there were a ton of people in Bangkok because everybody was waiting to take the Kenya Airways flight to Guangzhou, China, because they're only flying that now 3 times a week. So the chance of some of us actually running into each other on that flight was actually pretty good, given that we started out around the same time and there's only so many of those flights. So it's not that surprising, but it was kind of fun because there was a crowd of, I don't know, 12 to 15 people that were all doing the SAS thing. And I had bid on an upgrade on that flight, on the Kenya Airways flight. I had done the minimum bid, which is 195, and I had gotten the upgrade to business class. And it was really nice because this was a wide body jet and it was full lay flat seat. They even had very thick like padding, which I've never seen an airline do padding, provide like extra padding for a 2-hour flight, but they did. So I took a nice nap on that flight and enjoyed that. And and then for my last flight so far, I had a China Southern flight from Guangzhou to Hanoi, Vietnam. And I go to the transfer desk in China to see about transferring without, actually getting a visa into China. And they had no problem with that concept, but the problem that came up, there was actually 2 problems that came up. One, all right, so I have to back up a little. My visa to Vietnam didn't come in until a few days ago. And so I hastily printed it out at a airport hotel or something. I can't actually remember. It might have been in a lounge. And I had printed the wrong one. I'd printed the one from the 3 cards, 3 continents trip that I took, where I'd gone to Vietnam in that trip. So at first at the transfer desk, she's looking, going, this doesn't make sense. So I pulled up the new one on my phone, and she's like, well, you can't go because, and I'm like, why not? Well, my visa, so the new visa was wrong. It was supposed to be for yesterday and today, but it was for the day before to yesterday. So I had it off by 1 day. And I don't know whether I had made the mistake or they had, but regardless, I had the wrong visa. But the point was that I had just till the end of that night, last night, to get to Vietnam to be allowed in. And the first person I talked to had done the date calculation wrong because she didn't realize that Hanoi is an hour earlier. So the flight would have arrived after midnight in Guangzhou's time, but before midnight in Vietnam's time. So finally,
wow.
A supervisor figured that out, and okay, you can go.
Wow.
And all this time, so I'm like standing. They put me in like a little timeout area, and they have my phone because it has the visa on it, and they've got my passport, and I'm standing there
with
are from them, and like, oh, I'm in big trouble if I don't get this.
Oh man.
But that all worked out, and I flew China Southern, which is not a qualifying flight, to Hanoi, and and that flight was delayed. Long story short, I get to the front of the immigration line around 10 minutes till midnight.
Wow.
And the guy's like, no, you can't come in.
Ugh.
And uh, he, I don't know, maybe I looked sad enough that he called over a supervisor to ask about it. And the supervisor went into like hyperkinetic mode it took me a while to figure out what was going on because we were running around to different places showing my phone and my passport and everything to different people, and it turns out what he was trying to do was get it cleared in time before midnight, so it had to be done before midnight or else I couldn't. So so like he was literally like cutting me in front of people who were just about to get their immigration.
Oh, wow.
You'd be like, nope. And I felt bad for them. But I got in about 2 minutes till midnight, and
did you get his name and email so he can win
he
Hilton?
couldn't speak English, so we kind of grunted at each other. And then I've been worried about could I leave today? And so I got to the airport really early. I was going to do this live stream from the hotel, but instead I got to the airport really early and went to the visa desk, and they were actually really nice and just stamped it right away. So
Wow.
I believe I'm good to go.
Nice.
Little adventure.
Nice.
Well, I'm waiting for the Airport Express train in Hong Kong right now. It was supposed to be here 3 minutes ago, so I don't know if I might lose service while I'm on the train. I was trying to get a taxi, and then the taxi, the taxis here in Hong Kong apparently don't take a credit card. I don't remember that, but they'll take Alipay or WeChat, but those aren't working on my phone for some reason. So I had to go and get cash, and I got out enough cash for what the taxi driver told me. I came back, and of course it was a different taxi driver, and he wanted far more than I had taken out. So yeah, somebody else approached me and was like, hey, I'll take you to the airport. And so he just walked me all over the station way too long. And by the time, like, I don't even know where his car was, if he had a car even, but he finally walked me past the Airport Express, and I realized it was supposed to leave in a minute. And I said, well, at this point, walking to the car isn't any faster than the Airport Express. So it's going to be a little tight when I get to the airport. We'll see. But yeah, so that's where I am right now.
All right, well, Nick, give us like a 3 or 4 minute recap of the highlights of what's happened. We know it's been a show getting from Shenzhen to Hong Kong Airport today.
Yeah.
But so
My goodness.
since our last live stream, give us just kind of a 3 or 4 minute highlight of what's happened.
Yeah, so I last night I took the train from Guangzhou to Shenzhen, which is just outside of Hong Kong, and I did that specifically because there's a York Cove property, York Cove, however they say it, that would give me a Brand Explorer for Hyatt, and it was literally right by the cruise port in Shenzhen, which I found that there's a ferry that runs from there to Hong Kong Airport and drops you in the secure area. You can actually do airport check-in, I guess, in Shenzhen. So I thought that would be pretty cool, be a different mode of transportation. So I wanted to do that. And it opens at 6 a.m. in the morning, the port. And the hotel had advised me I could take the 8:45 ferry and really only needed to show up an hour early. But despite them telling me that, I still got up in order to be there at 6 this morning. And it's good I did, because the ferries were canceled because of a typhoon. So I couldn't do the ferry. So then I had to take a train. And the short version of the story there is that you need to get there well ahead of the train. So I ended up having to wait at the train station for like 40 minutes, even though there was a train going where I needed to go, because I just wasn't there early enough to buy the ticket for that one, even though I was there before the train. So I ended up taking a later train than I would have liked into Hong Kong. And then I got here and tried to take a taxi and didn't have the cash to pay the taxi. So I had to get cash out, like I said. And then the price went up because of the typhoon. So now I'm waiting in the Airport Express. So it's pulling in right now. It's supposed to be about 25 minutes to the airport from here. And so that would put me at the airport now, probably about 9:45 for an 11 a.m. departure. So, I mean, it's not awful, an hour and 15 minutes, I guess. I already checked in and have a boarding pass, so I should still make this flight. I hope I do, because I have plans.
Right. Well, if you're boarding this tram, it might be perfect timing for us to switch to Stephen, who has to get going in 15 minutes, I think. So, Stephen.
Okay, so last we left off, I was in Paris. So from there, I flew Air France to Amsterdam and then KLM to Bucharest. Stayed at the Intercontinental there using a free night certificate. That was exactly 40,000 points, so I didn't have to use any other points. That was a really nice stay there. Club lounge that I had access to because I've got a lounge pass. Complimentary breakfast as I have diamond status. So that just ended up being a lovely stay. I was going to do a walking tour, but it was like raining and snowing outside, so I ended up giving up on that idea and just hung out at the hotel until it was time to go to the airport. From there, I flew to Athens, and then from Athens, I flew to Athens on Tarim, and then on Aegean to Jeddah. Using Aeroplan miles because I needed to position for a Saudi flight. The flight that I booked was Jeddah to Jakarta via Medina. And so I flew to Medina. And then while I was in Medina, I realized that my next flight on to Jakarta was about 10 hours. And I hadn't actually realized that when booking everything because Saudi was my flight where everything had gone pear-shaped when I was in the middle of booking everything. And so I was just like hustling at the time, trying to get something booked so that I could piece together all of the other flights that I'd wanted at the time. And so I booked that. So yeah, sitting in the lounge, I was like, oh man, 10 hours in economy does not sound good because I'm like trying to fend off a cold at the moment and yeah, not having much sleep over the previous like 24, 36 hours and then not having much over the next few days. So I was like, screw this. I'm gonna like take a look to see what kind of award availability there is to Jakarta in business class. Super lucky that at an almost identical time to my flight, there was business class award availability on Garuda for 56,000 flying blue miles plus $28. And so that was great value for like a 10-hour flight, just like 56,000 miles and very little in taxes and fees. And so Garuda business class, pretty good overall. The entertainment wasn't great. There was maybe like 24 Western movies and stuff like that, but I don't generally care about that kind of thing. The most important thing was that they had tasty food, which they did, and that they kept the cabin a reasonable temperature so I could actually get some sleep, and they did. It was the perfect temperature. Like I was like Goldilocks underneath my blanket, and the blanket was perfect as well. It was nice and plush, but without being too hot. So I managed to get several hours of sleep on the flight, and so I felt much more rested after that. Got to Jakarta, all kinds of visa issues trying to get in. So I'm transiting to a flight to Singapore after this. And so in theory, I just needed a transit visa. So went to the transfer desk, spoke to someone for 20 or 30 minutes who seemed to know nothing about transit visas, even though he's on the transit visa area. And so then he told me just go to the immigration gates and they'll let you through. They didn't. They told me to go back to the transfer desk. Went back to the transfer desk. He then told me to go get a visa on arrival. So I had to get in a long line for that. Once I finally got to the visa desk, they said, no, you're transiting. You can't get a visa here. You have to go to the immigration desk, explain what's that you just are transiting and staying in the airport. They'll let you through. Sure enough, they didn't let me through. They told me to go back to the transfer desk or go get a visa. So I went back to go get a visa. Thankfully, the line was much shorter by that point. And so I eventually got someone who just let me get a visa for like 30 bucks or something like that. And I was but like that whole process took a good like hour and a half or something. And I was the very first
Wow.
person off the flight as well because I was right at the front in business class. So
It's like
um
the on foot version of hang up and call again.
yes. Yeah, so I was just grateful that I hadn't booked any kind of shorter layover here. So I still have like in theory plenty of time to get through, but given all of the other hassles I've had, I just want to be able to make sure I can get through security, just so that there's no delay in getting to my next flight. So that's where I'm at.
So I have
Wow.
one question for you, Stephen, and this is so because we had this question. I think somebody commented on this. Are you at all concerned that because you skipped the second leg of your Saudi flight, that you won't actually get credit for it
I
through SAS?
I was a little bit concerned about that. So I figured worst comes to the worst, I have Aero Mexico as a backup, provided nothing else goes wrong on this journey. But because I did complete one leg and it was different fare classes for the two legs, I'm feeling fairly confident that I will get credit for the first flight, even though I didn't get credit for the second one. So I'm hoping that that wasn't an expensive mistake to correct, but we shall see.
Man, things just got way more interesting with
Oh,
all
I
three
know.
of
It's
you.
all you
As
can
soon as you
feel
leave
the
Europe.
tension in the humid air where you guys are at. So currently, Greg has flown 16 flights. 5 of them have been in business. 1 of them has been in premium, and he's completed 10 qualifying carriers. So he's 2/3 of the way to his SAS Million Mile reward. Nick has flown 8 flights. 1 of them has been in business, and he's completed 6 qualifying carriers. Stephen is sort of in between. He's flown 12 flights. 3 of them have been in business. 1 of them was in premium, and he's completed 7 qualifying carriers. So Stephen will be about to go over the halfway point, assuming he can actually get through security and his visa wasn't counterfeit. Welcome to the final live check-in for Million Mile Madness. So, gentlemen, you're all here.
We are.
That's
That's an
Everybody made
accomplishment in itself, isn't it?
I
Yeah, is that
know.
a first time, perhaps? Steven, where are you at now?
I'm currently at LAX, about to take my very final flight back to Las Vegas. So that's in a couple of hours' time. So I'm looking forward
Wow.
to that being my final economy flight for like 2 weeks. So
Home stretch. Greg, how about you? Where are you at?
I'm at home.
At home. Crazy.
I've been at home for the last 5 hours or so.
Wow, sounds like this is practically over. Nick, where are you at?
I am at 12 airlines down and 3 to go.
All right.
But where in the world are you?
That's a great question. You're gonna have to keep an eye on Instagram to find out exactly where, because I'm gonna have some stuff coming out hopefully in the next few hours. I'm not gonna reveal exactly where I am, but here's what I'll tell you. I'll tell you that where I am, it is 6 o'clock in the morning, and I finished typing my update at 3:15. So I went to sleep around 3:45, got up around 5:45 for this,
man.
and
Wow.
and I've got plans afterwards. So afterwards,
Oh,
we gotta
my.
go for
Okay,
a
so
bit.
Nick does have a time crunch.
No, I don't
All
really have a time limit, but whenever we finish this, then I'll be on to the next thing. So but here's what I will say. Yesterday we'll go back over what we've done, but yesterday I went to a UNESCO World Heritage site, and today I'm gonna hit another.
Okay.
From Hanoi, I flew to Hong Kong on Vietnam Airlines. And I think same day, I just connected onward on China Eastern to Hangzhou.
Hangzhou,
Hangzhou.
think.
I always forget how to pronounce that one. China, where I got the 24-hour transit visa, and that took me like hours at the airport to get that right, because
It took you 24 hours to get the 24-hour
almost. They sent me at first to fill out a standard entry form, and that the guard at the immigration did not like that at all. So sent me back to do a different one that was more intended for transit, and that one got me through, but not without waiting in lines multiple times. I stayed in Westlake, which is a beautiful area, and I stayed in a really cool Canopy by Hilton hotel, which it's really hard to describe this place, but you walk into the lobby. Coming in, the doors like automatically swoosh open as you're walking in, and then there are lights, like different colored lights going and circling, and just colors, different clashing colors everywhere. A bar like in the middle of the lobby, and it's kind of like a party. And so I was a little concerned about what my room would be like, but I went up there and it was actually very nice, elegant, nice room. So I really enjoyed that stay, despite my initial concern a little bit when I came in. I got out a little bit in Westlake. First, I went out to try to go to the night market, but it turns out it's more of an evening market, not a night when Greg gets out at 11 p.m. market.
Not like Bucharest.
Not like Bucharest. And the next morning, I went out to see the beautiful, renowned Westlake, and it was kind of fogged over, so it was okay. Then back to the airport for me, and that's where I took Shaman to Taipei in business class, and that was very nice. Pretty amazing service on a short flight there. And in Taipei, I didn't leave the airport because my next flight out was later that same day on China Airlines to Seoul. And in Seoul, I also didn't leave the airport because I had another flight coming up where I flew on to Tokyo on Korean Air, and that marked my final of the 15 carriers. I was done as of Friday night.
So you completed all 15 carriers in under a week.
Yes.
Not the whole trip, but in terms of actually fulfilling the SAS challenge, you did that in under a week. Am I doing the math right on that?
Yes, thanks to time zones. Like, so not if you go just by the date at when I finished, you'd say it was exactly a week, but because it was actually
Saturday over there.
It was actually Saturday when I started. It was Saturday in Tokyo when I started, and I ended on Friday. Yes, I think you're right.
It gets very confusing.
It is very confusing. So then I treated myself to stay at the Conrad Tokyo, which was wonderful. And for the first time in the whole trip, I didn't have to set an alarm for the next morning. I was able to just slept till 8 o'clock, loved it. And then went downstairs for the free breakfast at the Conrad, had a great breakfast overlooking Tokyo Bay, and then headed over to the fish market where I had signed up for sushi making. And so I did a sushi making class where I surprised myself by actually making good looking sushi, which if you ever saw me at any other cooking class of any sort, normally whatever I make ends up looking kind of like a mess. I don't know how else, just a pile of blah. But these came out really nice, and they were delicious.
Nice.
Next stop.
Now, I have a quick question about the sushi making. Was the person leading that particularly renowned? Was that like a very well-known sushi maker?
According to the ad for the sushi making thing. I mean, he wasn't
known to you beforehand,
like a master sushi chef. Like they do have they have a set thing that you have to accomplish to become a sushi master, and he is that.
Wow, he's a sushi
I don't know whether he's
so the reason I ask is because I meant to tell you, like, the same day you did it, you're not going to be able to see this very well, but like I took this screenshot on my phone because this is you in the class, and this up here was an Anthony Bourdain no reservations ad where he was talking about this was the best sushi in Tokyo, and it is the guy that you were learning from.
Whoa!
Right? Oh my gosh!
Wow,
that's wild. You should text me that picture so I can put it on.
Yeah, that wasn't totally intentional on my part to go to the world-renowned sushi chef.
That's why you're shocked.
One of the cool things about how they did it is that like he doesn't speak English very well, but they had a person who speaks English perfectly kind of leading the class and giving like an overview, and then he would do his thing and she would interpret for him. And so I thought that was fantastic how well they did that.
Are you now, Greg, are you a sushi minor? And you're probably not a sushi master. But are you like what are you like a sushi
eater,
like brown belt?
I don't know. I do have a diploma from the sushi class. But I'm not sure what it. I'm not sure what it says.
Proof
What
that you're a
what
learned
belts of
sushi
sushi I have.
apprentice.
How was your sushi when you ate it?
It
You
was
actually got to eat
fantastic. It was so good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
They also had
Best in Tokyo, from what I hear.
it.
What'd you say?
Yeah,
I said
according
the
to
best in
Anthony
Tokyo, from
Bourdain.
what I hear.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
yeah. So after
Sorry to
the
interrupt.
sushi experience, I went to the to a hedgehog cafe where I got the. I hope I got the points for cuddling with something furry, even though
I'll have to
I'm not
wait.
really sure you could call them furry or
I have to wait to
cuddly.
find out. It was a broad definition, but we'll see.
Hey.
We'll see what Carrie ends up deciding because she's the final arbiter
Mhm.
on making friends with Fido.
Now there was something fluffy that I was trying to understand what the person was telling me, that I could pet this fluffy thing that had its head hiding, and it turned out to be a
My
meerkat.
favorite. And it turned its head at like, it's like, what is he saying?
Turned its head. I was like, oh, that's what you've been saying.
Oh man, it was great.
Meerkat.
Might be my favorite clip from the whole thing so
Yeah.
far. Anyway, then
So okay, to finish up my journey. So I was supposed to fly home Saturday night, business class on ANA to Seattle, and then onward on Delta to Detroit. But a late breaking tip told me that JAL first class had opened up from Tokyo to Chicago. Now I had been watching. I'd been watching for either ANA first class or JAL first class to open up to America for Saturday or Sunday. That was my plan all along, that I wanted either one of them to open up because it's the only way to buy a certain 100th anniversary blend of Hibiki whiskey is to be on board first class in one of those two carriers on one of these international first class flights.
Explain what Hibiki is.
And so Hibiki's a fantastic whiskey, which our whole team first experienced 2 years ago when we all flew ANA first class. We called that the Party of Five challenge, and we all flew ANA first class, and we did a whiskey tasting in the sky. It was such a great experience. We all loved the Hibiki whiskey, and most didn't think too much of the other ones that were available there. And so to me, it was like it's such a great, memorable, fun experience what we did 2 years ago, that when I saw that this Hibiki, was available just under this situation, I was like, oh, I have got to do that. And I knew we have a team meeting, in-person team meeting coming up in January. I was like, I've got to bring that bottle of Hibiki to our in-person meeting to share with the whole team. And we'll do it. We'll do a tasting of one. We'll just
we'll do a
taste
Hibiki only tasting.
unless anyone wants to bring
that
something
it's still
else.
pretty good.
So that's gonna be fun, regardless
That's
of whether
amazing.
I win or not.
Yeah, that is cool.
So how did you get, because the Hibiki bean whiskey is liquid. So how did you manage to get the Hibiki to your abode?
Yeah.
Good question.
That's a great question. So I knew this would be a problem because when you arrive in the States, you have to go through security again to fly anywhere else. And so when I was in the beginning of the challenge, when I was trying to decide whether to put everything in a backpack or carry a small roller bag, I realized I have to bring that small roller bag because I need a way of checking my
I
suitcase
remember
at
you
the end.
saying,
I was just like, I have to be able to check something at the end of this.
wow.
So I had my little bag on board, and I bought the Hibiki on the JAL flight, and I took out a bunch of clothes, dirty clothes, put the Hibiki in, put as many dirty clothes as I could all around it to cushion it. And then all the remaining dirty clothes, I opened up I have that little to-go backpack that's inside my regular backpack, just like the one Nick has shown off. I opened that up and stuffed all the extra clothes in there that couldn't fit in my carry-on.
So this is dirty clothes cured 100 anniversary Hibiki.
Nicely cured. Yeah,
we're gonna drink out of that bottle.
This is like special from so
Greg's
many
pouring.
angles.
That's all I'm saying. Greg is pouring.
And so, unfortunately, I had scheduled a very tight connection in Chicago to fly to Detroit onward, and I would have made that connection if it wasn't for the fact I had to check this bag. Luckily, I knew there was another flight just about an hour and a half later, and that's the one I got on. So it wasn't a big deal to miss the earlier one, but I was hoping to make it home in time for brunch with my family. I missed that.
Oh,
poor guy.
You're going to lose a bunch of style points for me.
I was just about
you
to say,
shouldn't have said that part.
I'm pretty sure that means that you lose the entire
You
challenge.
shouldn't have said that part. And I assume the Hibiki survived and the dirty clothing was sufficient for the...
It was. Hibiki is not leaking.
It's not a leaky Hibiki?
That's a really good sign. Leaky Hibiki.
Good.
That would be a problem, a leaky Hibiki.
That was an awesome recap. It made me miss Party of Five when I saw that footage come through.
I think that was 2 years ago when he said that. For some reason, it feels like it was like in the last year.
Yeah, all this time zone changing. Stephen, I think we're ready for your recap.
From Jakarta, I flew to Singapore on Garuda Airlines. That was a nice short flight. Hung out at the airport for a while, went to the Butterfly Garden and stuff. I was going to go watch a movie, but the one time that the movie theater is closed ever happened to be like the 4 or 5 hour period that I was there, so it was fine. There was a priority pass lounge right next door to it, so I just hung out there for a while and got some work done and stuff. And then from there I flew Vietnam Airlines from Singapore to Ho Chi Minh, and then that was a pretty short connection there, and then I flew on to Seoul. In Seoul, that was another fairly tight connection, and I flew on Korean Airlines from there to Guangzhou. Is it Guangzhou, Guangzhou, Guangzhou?
Guangzhou, I believe.
Guangzhou,
okay.
Probably.
And so I got there, and then I had a longer layover there. Thankfully, like I managed to get my 144-hour transit visa without any issues there. Then flew Kenya Airways' Fifth Freedom route to Bangkok that evening, and then I had another tight connection in Bangkok in order to make my flight for Sharm el-Sheikh. I did thankfully have enough time to get some time at the airport, and there was like a little video on Instagram for that, because I've been really looking forward to the opportunity to do that if I had enough time, and I didn't think I was going to have time like racing through the airport to do that, because I had to go through immigration and then like back through security, because Sharm el-Sheikh is pretty much the only airline at Bangkok airport, it seems, that doesn't have a transfer desk where you can get transferred, so you have to like go out and back in again. But yeah, thankfully had enough time to do that. And then from Bangkok, flew to Xiamen on business class on Xiamen Air, and then that was another fairly short connection there. And then I flew China Eastern to Kunming, and then China Eastern again back to Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. And I'd made a little bit of a mistake, it turns out, with my visa situation with Vietnam, because there's someone who'd commented on the blog. I think it's Tone. I don't know how their name's pronounced.
Tony.
Oh, it is Tony. Okay. And they had mentioned that because I have a British passport, that I don't need to get a Vietnamese visa, because I can enter the country for 45 days without needing a visa. And they'd mentioned that, I think, like earlier on in the planning stage. And so I was like, okay, sweet. So I just kind of put that part of it out of my mind as to, okay, I don't need to sort out a visa. Completely forgot that was the rule. So, and at some point, Greg had mentioned getting a visa for Vietnam. And
Oh crap. I haven't gotten a visa for Vietnam yet. And I thought like I just made like some kind of big mistake overlooking that fact. And so I applied for a visa online, got it through plenty of time and had it downloaded on my phone. But then when I was trying to go through immigration, they there was an issue with the date where I had put in that I was arriving, I think it was on the 16th and leaving on the 17th. For whatever reason, it showed up that I was arriving on the 15th and leaving on the 16th. And a similar thing, I think, happened with Greg.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's just a weirdly worded visa application where they perhaps ask the date that you leave and how many days you are going to be there and they backtrack from there, or if it's because we were applying from the US and it was a different time zone and it got messed up somehow. But either way, yeah, they were going to deny me entry into the country until another one of the immigration agents came over and said, well, you've got a British passport, just forget that visa that you applied for and you could just enter for free for 45 days. So it's like, okay, sweet. So
I should have done that British passport trick. I didn't think of it when I was there.
Heck.
And I knew it would come in handy like that. And then yeah, I got to my hotel only to find out that they didn't have room for me because like she gave some kind of explanation. I'm not entirely sure what it was. I don't think it was that they had sold out the rooms or anything. I think there was a problem at the hotel because it sounded like they were having to move everyone to a different one. But then the one that they were going to send me to had like a 6.5 out of 10 rating on Google reviews and stuff. And it was one that I'd seen on hotels.com and I was like, nah, I'm not going to go for that one. And so she gave me a refund and then I just went to a different hotel for the night. It was a bit of a shame because the one that I was going to be at was an apartment hotel where it was a 1-bedroom suite with a kitchen and a washing machine and things. So I figured, okay, I could do some laundry while I'm here. That didn't work out, but the airport hotel that I went to, and it's called the airport hotel, was like $32 or something like that. It was perfectly nice hotel, had everything that I needed for the night and like quiet, comfortable, clean and everything. And it was pretty much next door to the place I got walked from, so it meant that I didn't have to traipse all over the place. While I was there, went and got a nice massage for less than $20. Went and got fur with a beer for less than $3 or about $3 or something. So
Wow.
I have to say, first time in Vietnam, I'm impressed. So like definitely gonna have to go back because you do get a lot of bang for your buck there. And then from Ho Chi Minh, I flew China Airlines to Taipei, and then I just landed on a China Airlines flight from Taipei to Los Angeles, which was an 11.25 hour flight in economy, where I got the worst sausage feet ever. So yeah, I'm now currently in Delta Sky Club, ready to take my Delta flight back to Las Vegas shortly.
Nice.
11 hours. When was the last time that you took an 11-hour plus flight in economy? Or when was the last time that you had sausage feet that bad? Either way.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I never get sausage feet, and like this time I did. I'm not too sure quite what caused it this time, but the last time I had a flight that long, I think Cathay Pacific. We flew on their longest route in economy, which was Washington DC to Hong Kong, which I want to say is like 15 hours or something.
Wow.
I've also done I've also done like to and from Australia in economy before. And so that I want to say that was like 13 or 14 hours that time as well. So yeah, I mean it's been several years since I've done that, and so yeah, it's not something I would necessarily look to do again, but it's achievable.
For 1,000,000 miles.
Yeah, for 1,000,000 miles.
Right.
The sacrifices we make.
All right. Nick, I think that makes it your turn.
Oh, I did get to the airport, I think like maybe as we were on that live stream and got through, but no problem. I was amazed. In fact, from the moment I stepped off the train in Hong Kong at the airport to the moment I was done with airport security and passport control was 10 minutes on the dot. That was just incredible. I mean, including the fact that I had to walk in, right? I mean, it's not, not like you step off the train and I was in line already. I had to walk in and find it and all the rest of that. So yeah, 10 minutes, incredible efficiency. And so yeah, from there I flew to Taipei. And in Taipei, I was excited because when we decided, first of all, just when this trip came together and I knew I was going to have to fly China Airlines at some point, I figured I would try to meet up with friends in Taipei. And our friend Sharon in particular is someone we worked with. My wife still does, and I did for about a decade. And so we've gotten to know Sharon well over the years, and we've been to Taiwan a couple of times, and Sharon always takes us out for delicious food. She always is the master of ordering exactly what I want to eat. So I was excited to be able to get a chance to go out and have some dinner with Sharon, and she was able to help teach me how to order in Chinese. My Chinese is horrible. My pronunciation is bad, but she was a good sport about helping with that. So I took the MRT from the airport in to meet her, and then the MRT back to the airport, less than $5 each way. Super efficient. Didn't have a ton of time, but enough time to eat anyway. Then from there, I flew to Seoul, Korea on Korean Air. So I guess I should back up. Hong Kong to Taipei was China Airlines. So that was one of the qualifying airlines. Then Taipei to Korea, I flew Korean. And so I got to Seoul really late, about 11 p.m. and my flight out was at 8 a.m. So I stayed in an airport hotel, the Ibis Styles, which was pretty cheap and actually pretty nice. It's an Accor property, Accor Live Limitless. And interestingly, I ended up staying 2 nights in this trip at Accor properties, and I didn't book either of them directly through Accor. And this is like I've developed a new love-hate relationship with Accor because both of the Ibis properties I stayed at were quite nice, actually, for like an airport hotel for the situation I was looking for. It wasn't luxury, but it was like, it would beat, in my mind, if I were choosing just on, like the property, I'd pick that over a Hilton Garden Inn, maybe, or I guess maybe that'd be close. I'd pick it over a Hyatt Place, no doubt. I'd pick it over a Hyatt Place or a Hyatt House, probably. I liked it. I thought it was nice. It was clean. It was convenient. They had a 24-hour convenience store in the lobby that you could access with a credit card, and it was a full convenience store, even though there was nobody working. You could self-check out. So I was very happy with it. But there's like, the program, they need some more pizzazz going on with it, because what I could earn with points was less than what I could earn using Capital One Shopping cash back and clicking through and booking with Priceline or booking with hotels.com or something like that. So I ended up booking it through Priceline. Both times I think I booked through Priceline for Capital One Shopping cash back because it was worth more than what I would earn in Accor Live Limitless points. So anyway, stayed at the Ibis that was close to the airport, and then from there, from Seoul, I flew Air Asia from Seoul to Kuala Lumpur. That was a really cheap flight, $82 for a 6.5-hour flight. I added their fast pass, which I just barely noticed during the booking process, and I was glad I did because it only cost $19 more, and it came with additional carry-on, like a allotment or whatever allowance, which I knew I would probably need because I figured they would weigh my bag and my bag would be more than the 7 kilograms that it could be. So the additional carry-on allowance was perfect. It gave me enough weight to be able to bring my stuff. And also it gave me a fast track on immigration on arrival at Kuala Lumpur. And that was really nice. So it was super convenient and I didn't have any wait at all to go through immigration when I got to Kuala Lumpur. So those were both great things, and I picked a good seat on that flight. And then from Kuala Lumpur, I flew, so that was not a qualifying flight, Air Asia. Then from Kuala Lumpur, I flew Garuda Indonesia to Indonesia. I flew that one in business class. I booked an economy ticket for $135-ish, something like that. And I did the bid up to business class when they sent the email saying, would you like to bid for business class? And I noticed that the range for the bid was like $53 to $59. That was like the entire bottom end to the top end of the range for it to bid for business class. And so like, obviously you should just bid the 59 in that case so that nobody can outbid you, right? I mean, it's $6 difference, but I don't know why I bid 56. I have no idea why I saved myself the $3 over the maximum. I saved frequent miler, $3 over the maximum bid there. So I bid 56, and sure enough, it was successful. Days before the flight, I got an email saying that I was upgraded to business class. And I think I'm going to earn miles with SAS based on it being in business class, because in the SAS app, that flight updated to be in J class. So I assume I'm going to earn like 10 extra miles or whatever it is on a very short flight. So flew Garuda Indonesia to Indonesia, and that was great doing that in business class because, again, that gave me access to a dedicated like sort of fast lane. for immigration. And I know Stephen had gotten really tripped up in Jakarta, and it took a long time to get it figured out with like transiting and all that. And so I decided I'm not even going to try and explain that I'm transiting. I put that down in the visa application. I did a visa on arrival application that morning that I was flying out. I was trying to do it the night before, laying in bed, and the third time that the phone hit me in the face because I fell asleep while trying to do it, I said, you know what, I'm just going to try this in the morning. And so I did it in the morning, and I wrote down that I wasn't staying at a hotel. I was just going to be at the airport in transit, and that seemed to be fine. My application got approved. Nobody asked any questions. And I went through immigration, entered the country, and then checked in for my flight. And so that was easy breezy. From Jakarta, I flew back to Kuala Lumpur on KLM. That was, again, a cheap flight, $54 one way. And during the check-in process, I noticed they were selling the emergency exit row for $8. So for $8, I got an emergency exit row seat, and I was the only person in the entire emergency exit row, actually. So plenty of room to spread out and be comfortable on the couple hours back to Kuala Lumpur. Then I arrived in Kuala Lumpur pretty late, about 11 o'clock at night. This is where I got another IBIS stay in, and left at 8 o'clock in the morning to fly Xiamen Air to Xiamen. So I flew that yesterday morning and got to Xiamen. And in Xiamen, I went to what's called Gulangyu Island. So a lot of people refer to it as the Piano Island because they apparently have the most pianos per capita of anywhere in China, and it's produced some of China's most famous classical musicians. And it's a pedestrian island. So there's no cars, there's no bicycles. They have these like electric golf carts for tourists, but only a few of them. I didn't actually see one. I saw one just at the port, at the entrance, the whole time I was there. I didn't actually see one on a road or anything. So I'm not sure if they have a dedicated route for those. But anyway, so yeah, it's just walking, essentially. Quiet, small, very pretty, interesting history. So mixed architecture, but cool gardens and stuff, and it attracts like 10 million visitors a year, and it's a place that I assume most Americans probably aren't familiar with, even though it attracts 10 million people a year. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to feature something like that that's super popular in China, and maybe not as well known for American tourists. So I'd heard of it before from teaching English to people in that part of the world. So I had heard of it before, but I assumed that probably a lot of people hadn't. So anyway, so that was the UNESCO World Heritage Site that I visited there. So I took a ferry. So I got a new mode of transportation. I noted on Instagram that I have taken planes. I have taken a train, which I wasn't sure whether Greg or Steven has taken a train outside of the airport or not, but I've taken trains. I've taken public bus, obviously, of course, taxi and rideshare. And now I have taken a boat because I took the ferry over there and back. So I've taken multiple modes of transport on this trip. I'm pretty excited about the fact that I've tried out different stuff like that to figure out where I'm going from place to place. So that was yesterday. It was cool. You should check out Instagram, see a little bit of the highlights of that. And then I last night flew from Xiamen to where I am today. And then today, I'm eventually this afternoon, I'm going to be flying out of here. So I'm only here for a short stay. I got to my hotel very late. My flight landed, it got delayed, it landed at like 12:30. The time I got to the hotel was about 1:30. And I was excited about this hotel for a number of reasons. And because I got here so late, kind of like Greg was mentioning, night market was really an evening market kind of a situation. And so I didn't get to see at night what I had hoped to here last night because I just got in too late. But the hotel is cool and funky. And so I'll share some of that when I get a chance here on Instagram today, and then where I'm going and what I'm doing today. And then I still have 3 airlines to go. So if you've been following along, there's 4 total airlines that I could fly. I mentioned that I flew China Eastern on the blog, so you'll know that that's now done. And so the ones I still have to go are Air Europa, Air France, Delta, or Aeromexico. So actually, it's 4, and I have to fly 3 of those. So that's just a little sneak preview as to what might be coming next.
Let's go over some rankings. So we're going to start with the speediest of our Million Mile Madnessers. Cool. All right. So, and just a reminder, we are calculating this in a per segment format. So the time I'm reading is not the total time spent traveling, but the time per segment. Greg's time per segment, and this is now his official time per segment since he's done, was 13 hours, 37 minutes, and 28 seconds. And
I feel like you could have shaved that 28 seconds off, Greg, with just a little more.
That was the checked bag.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the checked bag. It was the dirty clothes.
That was me lollygagging around.
Couldn't get the pilot to just give it a little extra gas. Huh?
So Greg is thus far our fastest, and I mean, no one will be faster.
I think I'm also going to be fastest to guess Nick's next stop. I think it's Mallorca.
Mallorca.
Yeah.
Okay. His next stop, not where he's at currently. Interesting. Okay, so second speediest so far, and can't imagine that this changes.
Pretty much officially. It's gonna have to get pretty disastrous.
Right. Knock on something. Everybody like this video to give Steven good luck.
I think you got this locked up.
Himself. So his time per segment has been 16 hours, 21 minutes, and 52 seconds. So not that much more than Greg's. And then Nick is not that far behind Steven, actually, though that's about to drastically change, obviously.
We're solving that wound. All right.
About that.
It's about to change. It doesn't have to be drastic.
It's not the only metric we're measuring, but he has spent 17 hours, 52 minutes, and 30 seconds per segment, with some segments left to go. So that is our speed summary.
Well, so Nick, if you somehow, if your next stop is a time machine, you may be able to unseat either Steven or Greg in the number 1 or number 2 spot. Otherwise, I think you
Seems
may
unlikely.
You may be headed towards the third place
finish.
Yeah,
it's looking that way. Yes.
Yeah. No, but to your credit, you never called yourself Nick the Speedy Reyes.
I didn't. Greg mentioned some people thinking that I was going to do this really fast, and I'm sure they certainly did. I thought I was going pretty quick, but I think I was also in a hurry to try to do stuff while I was traveling, just to fit in time to go see some different things along the way. I was not as aggressive as these guys. These guys were brave in terms of their connection times. So I was really, really surprised at how aggressive they were in terms of the connection times, and impressed. Well done. Hats off to you guys, because I was not brave enough to intentionally plan something with like an hour and a half layover. I just wouldn't have expected that was going to work out repeatedly. Although I don't know why I wouldn't, because I often say they're called irregular operations because they happen irregularly. And I often tell people I don't plan much around the chance of something irregular happening. This was an exception because there were so many domino pieces that might fall, but you guys proved that it was doable that way. Well done.
Well,
thank you.
So we'll go to affordability next. Greg is done, and Steven, we know what his price is going to be, what his final tally is going to be, unless he misses his flight and then gets into a nasty accident and then has an unplanned hospital stay.
Oh my God! Now everyone has to look.
Wow, this is getting
throwing that out to the universe too.
Like we pretty much know where he's going to end, or unless he just goes crazy at the gift shop in LAX, one of the two. But so and there's two different things that we're tracking here. We're tracking what would be considered out-of-pocket spend, or the actual amount of total dollars that were spent. But what we're considering the total cost is the sum of that number, the amount of actual cash, as well as the total value of points and credits and gift certificates as we deem them by our first year values and reasonable redemption values. So that makes it quite a bit higher once you combine those two things together. But so let's go from third to first in terms of cost. So to no one's surprise, Greg is number 3. His trip is clocked in at a total cost of $8,265. The reason, but a good chunk of
better use those million miles well, Mr. Frequent Miler.
Greg used a lot of points and miles on this. A lot of points and miles. He used $170.
He's getting it back, basically.
A $50 Hyatt rebate, a $60 Hyatt rebate, 182,500 AA miles, 28,000 Marriott points, $110 in Hilton credits, 95,000 Hilton points, 25,000 Delta Sky miles, which are actually worth, a negative value these days, and 25,000 Hyatt points. So, and the reason why I want to contrast these two next. So Steven right now is in number 2. Stephen has spent $5,051 on his trip. And Stephen has also spent or used 21,500 AA miles, IHG and IHG fixed 40K certificate, 12,500 Aeroplan points, and 56,000 Flying Blue miles as well. And so Stephen is currently in second place with at $5,051 total, and that will pretty much be his final number. Nick is in first place for affordability. Nick has used, as for points, he's used 40,000 AA miles so far in an Amex airline fee credit. And altogether, he has spent $3,843 in cash and points equivalents. So just to kind of do the math quickly, Nick is about $1,200 ahead of Stephen. So if Nick can finish off his trip and get home for $1,200 or under, Nick will win first place in affordability. However, if Nick uses $1,200 in cash and points and miles equivalents, Stephen will take the crown for most affordable.
I'm really worried that I hosed myself now by booking that
Doing
business
that upgrade
class flight from Saudi Arabia
to 56,000 miles. That cost you, buddy.
Yeah, because that was
cost you.
That was like 700, 750. If I hadn't done that, I would have locked in first for sure.
I think you got style points for it though.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
True.
Well, you can see his stomach's turning now. He's like, oh.
You wanted the affordability. You wanted that one.
I did.
Yeah, well, it's still, I mean, Nick has to get back.
Not over.
It's not over.
Yeah, and getting across the Atlantic from Europe isn't cheap. Like getting a one-way flight from the US to Europe, you can find some good fares. Trying to do it in the other direction, usually it's cheaper to book a round trip flight than it is to do a one-way flight. So I'm curious what he's going to end up with. I think it's going to end up being super close. I have a feeling Nick already kind of knows how much he's due to be spending and everything, but yeah.
Well, assuming he makes all of his flights.
Yeah, so. And I guess you've got some accommodation along the way too, maybe.
Right.
Factor in. So yeah, this is going to be really fascinating the next few days to see what happens.
Currently, Stephen is in second place for speed and affordability. Nick is in first in affordability and third in speed. Greg has wrapped up first in speed, and he was wrapped up last in affordability, I'm pretty sure, unless Nick really goes baller for the next 4 days.
Right.
3 days, 2 days, whatever it is. So they're all at 40 points, so we're tied now. But now it comes to style. It's the style ranking. Okay. And now this is where Carrie and I, this is our one moment. Power right here.
All right, style. So we're talking about anything that happened between last check-in and now. Greg's style came from a stay at the Conrad Tokyo, a sushi lesson, which now we know a famous sushi master, a hedgehog shop where he saw some adorable hedgehogs and pet them, and then a JAL first class lounge and flight that came with exclusive access to the 100th anniversary Hibiki that commemorates our Party of Five whiskey tasting from 2 years ago. So, are we ready to score this?
I think Greg got some really nice accommodations. He probably wins the nice accommodations on the second half, both with his stays, his 2 Marriott stays in, I think it was Jakarta and Hanoi, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
And then the 2 Tokyo hotels. I've heard wonderful things about the Conrad Tokyo, so I'll look forward to reading a review on it. And also the one thing that I wanted to point out is that where I think Greg got some style because from my point of view, thinking a week ahead of time to pack a roller bag on the off chance that he could bring a bottle of Hibiki back for the team. That's not only stylish, that's altruistic.
Which is very stylish. Might be the most stylish.
Way to bribe the judges here. Way to bribe the judges.
Right.
You knew exactly what to go for. And the hedgehog, it was very well done. All right. So next summary up, we'll do Nick. Nick also did some creative styling. He met up with a local friend in Taipei for local language lessons and a little food tour. And then a $56 upgrade bid that worked for upgrading to business class. And then the Gulan Island off of Xiamen. So we had a nice blend of trying to fancify your trip, but also doing lots of local things.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would say that I would give Nick a bit of style too is the back-to-back getting the upgrade for paying $56 for an upgrade on Garuda after $19 for the Air Asia. That got him double fast track and fast track immigration and the private bus and all that other stuff. I thought that was for a total of what, $75 out of pocket or something. I thought that was pretty
and
good.
The $8 Air Asia exit row that ended
and the $8
exit row.
Yeah. Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like Rhea's
I had a hot streak.
class-ish. Some of my favorite travel experiences have been visiting locals. I just think there's no better way to do that, especially if it's someone you know, a friend. You get to hang out with a friend and you get to see just the everyday life stuff. I think that's really neat, and it's someone you actually did know. You didn't book it through Airbnb, although that would have been cool too. So you get a nod for that. I think that's neat.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you.
So we're going to go on to Stephen.
We're going to go on to Stephen. I saw some style in your clever planning. So for Stephen, I want to highlight that he, even though he was rushing through an airport and had to leave and come back and did not get a transfer, he still made sure to get his favorite dish in Thailand while he was there, Samtam, and he got to share a story about that on Instagram, which I appreciate. I appreciate the video elements. So I am giving a nod to that. And then also he stopped at a pho shop that also came with a cat. So he got his petting an animal, which is wonderful. We always love to see that. Love local pho as well. And then he got a hot stone massage in Vietnam too. So love to see that. Anything that you think we should add to Stephen's stylings?
There was like the business class flight on Sharman Air, but other than that, there hasn't been much opportunity for much style over the last couple of days, or last few days, because it's been pretty much
also the 15 priority pass lounges.
The 15 priority pass lounges. I do think that deserves a nod, especially since you've kind of creatively, one of those lounges you visited because something else didn't pan out, and so you spun it into like a new goal. Which I think is cool.
Full disclosure, it was 15 visits to priority pass lounges. Unfortunately, it was only 14 different lounges.
That changes it.
Although I feel like the dishonesty should get some style points. Because I realized when I showed up at the one Ho Chi Minh, like I went there and I was like, they've got this like grassy like sign with their thing, and I was like, that looks really familiar. So maybe it's a little bit like Plaza
Deja Vu,
or something like that. I realized that I'd had my stopover in Ho Chi Minh a couple of days prior, and so I'd been to that one. So but yeah, I did make sure that like I rushed all around the airport in Taipei trying to find one of the priority pass lounges there so that I could get my 15th visit on the trip for that. I'm pretty sure that it was 40. I need to go back through and double check.
Okay.
I've definitely had at least 15 visits. Pretty sure it's 14 lounges. It might possibly be 15. It's been pretty hard.
Not only did Stephen go out and adventure in an amazing place to do so, but Stephen filmed way more selfies than I know he's comfortable with. We got way more selfies out of Stephen than we have from past challenges, and I appreciate that. So
I think it's more than I've ever filmed in my entire life.
And you've been doing a great job with them, Stephen.
Yeah, really well done.
Really enjoyed watching this.
Even selfies when he didn't feel like it, like when he was sprayed with water from the water bottle pressure. So
oh yeah.
Yes. All right. I think that gives us so what's the tally there?
Well, let's go through. We need to quick go through extra credit. There are 5 extra credit opportunities. One of them is to stay in a Hilton. Head to the Hilton. All of you have done that. You've all earned 2 points. Another category is Reyes Business Class. Show us a trick to enhance your economy enjoyment. And you have all had various ways of getting either a full row to yourself in economy, or an exit row, or first class. Or Nick actually got his own bus across the airport, so that's pretty blingy. So you've all gotten 2 points for that. You have let me look here. Oh, learning from a local. Greg got 2 points for learning for a local because he learned how to make sushi from the best sushi master in Japan, according to Anthony Bourdain. Nick got learning for a local because he learned how to order bubble tea and Tim Ho Wan. You went to Din Tai Fung, not Tim Ho
Din Tai
Wan.
Fung, yeah.
Yeah, Din Tai Fung.
Correct.
So he learned how to, but regardless, learned how to order dim sum in Chinese. Stephen, unfortunately, unless we missed it on the video,
I don't think I have.
and unless you can
Did that cat not teach you anything?
Love.
So then making friends with Fido. Carrie, does Greg's hedgehog
Absolutely.
your cat experience? Okay, so that counts.
Absolutely. He pet them as much as they would have consented to be pet.
Does Steven's experience with mustaches the cat?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Does Nick's experience with
a dog running away from him?
No, sorry,
Nick doesn't have making friends with Fido yet. The last opportunity for extra credit is savoir flair. Use your know-how to show us a cool trick to make your travel easier. Greg did it by using his heretofore unused Equinox credits to get a free massage in New York. Stephen got it by visiting what we thought was 15 priority pass lounges. We actually found out that Stephen clickbaited us on Instagram. But actually, the real thing, the thing that we were really impressed by was that Stephen's trick of warming up his economy class butter for his economy class roll on his economy class hot. I'd never thought about that before in all the hours and all the crappy economy class meals I've ever thought. And I'm always like, God, this butter just tears up this thing.
It truly does.
Never thought about it before. So Stephen gets some savoir flair.
And I would like to share that flair with my wife because it was her who first introduced me to that concept.
Wait, I missed that video. How did you
missed it?
Brilliant. So you know how you get like the little packets of butter and they're always rock hard.
And they're rock hard.
Try spreading it on your thing and it just tears apart your roll. You just stick it on your like little economy meal because it's warm. Just leave it on there for a minute or two and then
right on top of the foil.
That's great. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Somebody improved upon your tip on Instagram and said put it under the tray if it's having a hard time melting on top.
Somebody else said that you actually put it under your seatmate. So whoever's sitting next to you, just put it underneath them. Nick got savoir flair for his $75 double upgrade, double fast track trick through Air Asia and Garuda, and for getting a whole bus across the airport on his lonesome. That's pretty fun. Some people might just take a car. Nick takes a whole bus. So extra credit points. Greg got all 10. Stephen got 8 of 10. Nick is sitting at 8 and still has time to make friends with a furry friend. We'll see what happens. Lastly, there's personal missions, or I guess not lastly, but almost lastly, personal missions. Each one of you had a mission that you bragged about that you were confident you would succeed in beforehand. And if you successfully did it, we're going to give you 3 points.
I don't even remember what this was.
Greg felt like he was going to be the fastest to 15 carriers. And he was by a significant margin. So Greg gets 3 points. Nick, it was not enough for him to have 1. He wanted 2 things for which to have his personal mission be dependent on. 1 was visiting the most cities outside the airport. I think it's pretty safe to say that he's probably going to get there. The other was that he has to win the audience choice at the end of this. So, assuming that you do get the cities, if you get audience choice, you get your 3 points. So you better think about however whatever you got left, make it impressive.
Right.
Stephen felt like he was going to fly around the world faster than a speeding Greg. And he
Sorry,
thought
Steven.
he said he was going to beat Greg home by 2 days, or beat the second fastest person home by 2 days, and the slowest person home by 4 days, which he still may. We'll see when Nick gets home. He unfortunately did not beat.
Yeah,
Greg.
I really thought Greg was going to stop and smell the roses and enjoy some time in each of these places and really live it up in luxury. And sadly for me, that did not happen.
Yeah, only roses I took time to smell were Tokyo roses.
Yeah. and the roses on all of his business and first class flights.
True.
So you just do the luxury part.
And so the last points that we have to award are for keeping up with your journals and your Instagrams. Stephen, you are about home. I think that it's safe to say that you're going to win your 5-point bonus. Nick, thus far, you have put an update out every day and you've done an Instagram video every day. You get a 5-point bonus. Greg,
too busy living in
unfortunately, you
did he get soft? All that
like first class champagne
travel.
a little too hard.
Did you? Was it all the wine tasting, or was it like I got this?
I missed one day. It was a day that I had back-to-back flights that had no Wi-Fi. It was impossible. But that's fine.
I will say I've
the
been
rules.
surprised at how few of the airlines that we flew in Asia had Wi-Fi on their planes.
Yeah,
like
very few.
Interesting.
Like China Airlines on my way back did, and so I connected to them and they had really decent Wi-Fi. But pretty much, I think that there may have been like one other airline that had Wi-Fi. All the others didn't.
Maybe Korean had it, but it was exorbitantly expensive or something. I took a screenshot, I remember, because I was like, wow, that's incredible. But I don't even remember necessarily. But you're right, yeah, not much Wi-Fi.
So as it stands now, and keep in mind, these aren't the final standings. Nick still has to finish his trip. We still have to do the audience choice award. And then there's going to be a bunch of best of the challenge awards that we're going to give at the end. So there's still points out there to be had. But as it stands right now, Stephen is in third place with 68 points. Nick is in second place with 73 points. Greg is in first place with 1,528 points.
I think you're exaggerating a little bit, Tim.
Okay, no.
You forgot to subtract the 5.
You did it. I'm sorry, I did the math wrong. It's actually only 78. So 5 points separate each of you. Oh,
wow.
What will happen?
Yeah.
So reader choice. Please come through for me.
Yes.
At the end of the last live stream, I was already home and Stephen was one flight away from finishing. His final flight completed without a hitch, and he even managed to complete his 15th different Priority Pass lounge visit at the Las Vegas airport. So bravo to that. I love that he did that despite, I'm sure he was dead, tired, exhausted, but he made it into that 15th one. Meanwhile, Nick still had plenty of traveling yet to do. So here's a recap of what he has done since that last live stream. First of all, he recorded that live stream from Xi'an, China, where you may know the famous Terracotta Army is in Xi'an, and that's what he visited next. So from there, he flew China Eastern to the Middle East, where he then got on Etihad First Apartments to Paris. If you've been following along, you may remember that I flew Etihad First Apartments from Paris to Abu Dhabi. He did the opposite. He got more time in the first class lounge in Abu Dhabi than I did, and more of those kind of ground services like the express security and things like that. But as he noted in his posts about this, he had less onboard catering because his was an overnight flight, whereas mine was a daytime flight. So that was a difference between our flights. But otherwise, we both booked with 62,500 American Airlines miles for that incredible flight. Nick's next stop, now that he was in Europe, was to visit the Christmas markets in Vienna. Apparently, this is the reason that Nick decided to arrange his whole trip so that he would return to Europe, because he really wanted to revisit the Christmas markets in Vienna, which he has gone to before. Finally, he stopped in Barcelona, where he visited a local market, which turned out to be not much. But then he went to a recommended local tapas place, and he said that was fantastic. And I am jealous seeing what he ate and drank there. It looks amazing. Finally, he knocked off his final required Air Europa and Air France flights and ended with a Delta flight from Paris to New York to complete his 15th SkyTeam flight. So that's what he's up to right now. He's as I'm recording this, he is in the sky flying Delta home. So that's a summary of what's gone on since the last live stream. Not a live stream, hopefully. However, we will host a final live stream on Tuesday, November 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. There, the final scores will be announced. And now that's going to be based in large part on voting, on audience voting. So please stop by our blog, frequentmiler.com, to cast your vote. Who do you think had the best trip? Vote for me, Stephen, or Nick, and that'll be counted as a big part of our score. So please do that. Do that before Tuesday's live stream. And we hope you'll have a chance to tune in on YouTube to see us live there. Bye, everybody.